first things first, this is going to be a relatively quick tempo session. So if you have any questions, all the speakers are going to be here after the session as well. So there is going to be some in-person opportunity for a Q&A. During the session, it's going to be about 5-6 presentations. You'll see in the structure in a second. So just please hold on to your seats, and it's going to be a interesting, I think, informative ride for all of us. So I would like to start by introducing Ugo, you're going to see here, Chiavetta, Francesca, who's going to sit here, Luke, who's at the sidelines right now, but he's going to move to the table slightly bit later, Vincent as well, who's next to him. I'm Sarah. Farid, you have here to my left. Thomas is also sitting in the front row at the moment. Mirko, next to me. And Lucio, who's also there as well. So, first things first. So we have a first presentation, introduction actually by Mirko, who kindly is going to give us some context. Then we are going to have Farid, CREA, PFC, LP, a panel discussion, and then hopefully we have enough time for some wrap-up points, takeaways, and going more into the content overlaps between the different presentations as well. So at this point, to not waste any more of our time, from me just doing like admin stuff, as a timekeeper, I'm also going to be the one person that's going to interrupt people if they're talking too long, so apologies for that to everyone involved at this point, but now it's going to be Mirko giving us some context from a GRC standpoint.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for joining the session. Yeah, so I will provide you some context where we are in terms of the methodologies for improved forest management, and also some a bit of a flavor of what we are doing at the GRC. Also then to link on the importance of the different work that will be shown today, which is more focused on local projects and why we need it. First of all, many of you, I think, were today at the Forestry session, so maybe it's a bit repeating what Simone said this morning. But in terms of methodologies, the CRCF developed the afforestation methodology. And for the improved forest management, actually is in the pipeline. So it's in development, and there will be the consultation with expert group, but also public consultations within probably the second half of this year. So this is really the stage where inputs can become very handy also to go in the right direction with the methodologies. As GRC, so GRC is a DG of the European Commission that is supporting the Commission with scientific evidence. You've seen the talk from our director before in the plenary. So for the CRCF, we are working on three different sectors. One is the central one is developing tools for quantification of the additionality, so the baseline, but also tools like models for quantifying the carbon removals. We did a lot of work in the last months on the risk of reversal and the buffer pool. And then a third part that I will not show today, but that for us is very interesting, working on the co-benefits, biodiversity, but also biophysical effects of CRCF. Regarding the products, I just want to just quickly advertise, sorry also for that, some products that were out last week or a couple of weeks ago. So, but we develop a tool at European scale map for the risk assessment, and this can be found at this link here. The presentations will be distributed. I have an echo, but I think it's from the other. Yeah. Okay. I will try to talk over the other speaker gently. But so what we have is this risk assessment tool where you can go in different locations and assess the risk of natural disturbances. And we also try to provide an explicit, a spatial explicit buffer pool. At the moment it's for different bioregions, but in the next couple of weeks we will release also a spatial explicit one. Same for the, okay, this got completely messed up. I don't know if, okay, there was supposed to be another slide here. But I can talk through. So basically we have, yeah, okay, but doesn't matter, we save time. So just to say that we are developing two sets of tools. One, a standardized baseline, which is also, according to the regulation, one of the potential baseline, but not the mandatory one to use. And then also an online tool and software that can be used for basically running a project-specific calculation at project level for project-specific baselines, but also for the quantification of additionality based on the carbon budget tools, where one can provide the management plan and some of the parameters of the model and run the tool. So this is not yet public. We are developing that, and we hope soon to release that. I say that because those are tools that we plan together with DG Clima to release for the operators, but are not mandatory tools to use. So each operator or project developers can develop their own tools that are in line with the methodology. And one important part for today is actually that these tools are really designed to be applicable at European scale, which means that can lose, in some cases, specificity. So there are some local conditions that are not caught very well, and local data are very important. And this is what brings to a bit the objectives of today and the way we thought the session. So we want to discuss different examples of MRV solutions and architectures for forest carbon projects, examples from local projects with new tools, methodologies, and different technologies. Also, different examples of activities in different contexts are selected for improved forest management, because this is something, again, that is on the table. And then also aspects related to co-benefit and risk reductions. And with that, I think we can move to the different talks. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely, thank you. I'm sorry, there was like an issue with apparently saving it, so part of it was the graphic kind of messed up. But thank you for improvising. So next person up is Farid.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thanks all for being here. So this part off. First, a question for the room. Who is here in the capacity to buy or procure carbon removals for his or her business? One person, that's a surprise. Two, all right, that's a big surprise. I thought it would be zero. And why? Because the central critique of the Okay. So as former sustainability specialist at a large French bank, I know that the central critique of forest carbon projects is its durability. That is the non-permanence issue of forest CDR. So forests are often criticized for being non-temporary, for being an unsafe form of carbon storage. And for a reason, because the top 3 risks to forest carbon in the EU are storms, wildfires, and pest infestations like bark beetles, as we have in Germany. So, but that's not the reasons why forest carbon projects fail. Forest carbon projects fail because today's MRV systems are not designed for these volatile biomass storages, as forest ecosystems are. So my thesis is, durability is therefore not a biological problem, it's a design problem of our MRV systems. Okay, so this is why we built an MRV design to manage reversal risks and the biological volatility of forest ecosystems. But to understand this, first we need to be precise about durability. Durability is a function of 3 things. It is A, the length of the storage period, that is how long the carbon is stored. B, the reversal risk, that is the risk of re-emission during that storage period. And C, the mechanism to account for the reversals and to replace the reversed carbon. So with this lens, it quickly becomes obvious that it's not that forests are always going to be volatile ecosystems and there will always be reversals. The question is, how do we set up our MRV systems to account for these reversals and to manage the reversals? So the standard approach to managing reversals is a buffer pool. So we take a 30-year project, for instance, that starts in 2025. It's a 30-year project period. It ends in 2055, and it's buffered. All future reversals during that 30-year project period are buffered with a, let's say, 20% buffer pool. And that's already a good buffer pool. There are projects with 10% buffer, for instance. So that is a problem, because buffer pools, science shows this, are undercapitalized. For instance, in the California Air Resources Board, the buffer pools for wildfires are already 95% depleted. They are meant to insure wildfire risks for 100 years. We're not even 10 years in the projects, and the buffer pool is 95% depleted. So the science is there, buffer pools might not be fit for purpose. So this is why we designed an MRV method to make sure that buffer pools work. So how do we do this? We focus on continuous replacement. This is our mantra. So we do 1 year reporting periods. We have 1 year project periods. And we slice up a 30-year period into 1 year reporting periods. And we continuously renew these 1 year reporting periods, right? So for a 30-year project, we have 31 year project periods. So what is the big benefit of having this system? We still work with a buffer pool, but that buffer buffers the foreseeable and calculatable risk of 1 year. It's not a super long project period of 30 years that has to be buffered. It's a 1 year risk exposure that we buffer with our buffer pool. So the risk exposure in our model is limited to 1 reporting period, and that is a predictable and insurable length of our project. So in the conventional model, a 20% buffer, if you annualize this, if you put that on an annual basis, it's a 0.67% buffer per year, okay? That's the annualized buffer. In our horizontal stacking model, we still work with a buffer, of course, but that buffer firstly buffers a short and for calculatable risk, and with a 13.4% buffer for 1 year only, we get a 20x annualized risk coverage. That doesn't mean our projects are 20 times safer, it just means we have 20x the risk coverage for our 1 year reporting periods. And since we renew continuously every year all projects, we also renew and fill up our buffer every single year, right? So the key implications are we fundamentally change the risk profile, right? This means we have decades of uncertainty in the status quo, but with us, it's a simple 1 year project that we have to insure with our buffer pool. And small risks are easier to insure, and the durability in our projects is not from one large project, it's from sequencing 1 year projects in a row. And the really important point here is that we verify all our projects ex post, right? So instead of verifying every 5 years or every 10 years, we are verifying every single year. We have our auditors on the field verifying every year ex post our projects, so we can be 100% sure that the carbon, the units, the removal units that we issue are unquestionably, that the carbon is unquestionably sequestered. So what do we do exactly? What is our intervention mechanism on the ground? So the start of the project year, there's a biomass and a forest, and there's growth, the green area, and in the status quo, that growth is harvested, usually. So we are incentivizing forest owners to delay their harvest, so that growth, that annual growth, remains in the forest. So vis-a-vis the baseline scenario, we have an additional biomass in the forest. So this is a removal, that constitutes a removal. There's also avoidance in our model because of less harvest operations, etc., but conservatively, we're not accounting for those. So how does the MRV structure look like? We are working with Earth observation data. We have forest inventories and growth models. We work with historical harvest records and sales volumes, and we annually measure via our field audits on sample plots only, not of course on the whole forest area. The growth, we're checking the diameter on breast height, etc. So these are the input variables for our MRV system. It's really important. This is MRV system functions on an annual basis. So this limits us in a way because the growth that I mentioned before might be smaller than the standard deviation when we rely solely on Earth observation, for instance. Right, so we do the baseline modeling. We only focus on above ground biomass, so no root to shoot factors or anything that can inflate forest carbon pools. And we do a continuous disturbance detection and canopy monitoring via Earth observation data. And for every one of our projects, we have life cycle assessments and net removal accounting. So, thank you, Sarah. We have a very strict moderator today. Yeah, so the outputs is a verified biomass storage in tons of CO2 equivalent and ex-post verified removal units, of which we sequence 30 in a row. So what our buyers get is still a 30-year credit, but it comprised made of 31-year removal units. And that is validated and verified based on ISO 14064 and 3, verified by the Control Union and funded by DLR, the German part of ESA, and the European Space Agency. So this is OxyEarth. My name is Farid. If you have questions about our model, please reach out. I'll be around. And there are a few things to remember about this talk. It's first, we need forest biomass storage to work, otherwise EU member states are not going to reach their NDCs. Second, it's a super volatile form of storage. It's a living ecosystem, and the mitigation mechanism that we have today, the buffer pool, might not be working when they are undercapitalized. So this is our suggestion. Horizontal stacking is our suggestion to limit these risks. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Farid. Next up is Lucio, who's going to give you a more Italian example, I think, one might say. So we had.
Thank you very much. I'm Lucio Vera, and I will present what I think it is an improvable and trying to be practical methodology to valorize small-scale carbon and nature-oriented forestry. So just a few words on why we try to start this project. The project was funded by the National Biodiversity Future Center cascade funding, and we worked both on the needs and what we can offer as a small forest managers. First of all, the needs are to compensate high costs for forest planning and operation, because this is a very highly impacting cost, especially in mountainous areas. We need, as practitioners or as forest enterprises, to have a practical and efficient methodologies to support field work, because this is where forest management happens. And we need to balance the risk connected to timber prices and in general to long-term forest planning. What we can offer is, of course, raw materials and high co-benefits both on biodiversity and the climate ecosystem services, but also on the local economies. The methodology was developed having different objectives. So the first one was to objectively demonstrate the positive impacts on nature deriving from active forest management, create a planning and monitoring protocol that is suitable for common practitioners, and to promote the carbon and biodiversity markets. We worked both on carbon and, let's say, nature and other ecosystems. So regarding carbon, I won't say anything because it was based on the national guidelines that Ugo will talk about in a few minutes. So just to say that we validated the methodology following the ISO 14064 Part 2, and it applies to different improved forest management and land management practices. Regarding nature and biodiversity, we developed this index that allows us to create biodiversity units, and it takes into account different aspects. First of all, the ecological value, but also the permanence risk and the factors related to the management of those permanence and the risks. I won't talk about that because it's like about 30 different factors, but the interesting thing that I want to say is that most of them can be obtained quite easily thanks to field work, because when I talk about small scale forestry, I talk about 5 hectares at best of forest intervention, and this size is at the moment not, in my opinion, controllable or monitorable through satellite or satellite data. So what we try to say is that we need to be in the forest to well manage it. And obtaining the biodiversity units, we can then relate them to the scale of the forest plot. So we have both an index values regarding carbon sequestration and storage, and the biodiversity score. What are the main takeaways? I said it like 5 times already, but I say it again, that we need, as practitioner, to have solid and robust methodologies to work on field, because if we don't know how to work well in field operations, then most of the impacts that we are imagining are not happening in the field. And also, another remark I want to make is that most of the both forest managers and forest companies that work, at least in my area, are well beyond the possibility to learn how to use technology. So the practical aspect of our methodology is in my opinion, essential to have when we think about improved forest management. The second point is obvious, so I don't talk about it. and the third is that assessing the co-benefits in small scale carbon project is, in my opinion, the only chance we have to valorize them plenty, because we produce a small amount of carbon credits, and then the price is quite high compared to the average. So valorize and measure co-benefits is essential to valorize the market. I think I'm finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Up next is Ugo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, and thank you everybody for being here. I'm Ugo Chiavetta. I'm from the Forest Research Center, Italian Forest Research Center, and today I'm going to present you a web tool that we implemented in the framework of LIFE project. Probably the graphic are almost unclear. Okay, the project is climate positive. I will go very quick through this presentation, and I invite you tomorrow at the afternoon, yes, at the stand in the main entrance, the live stand, to have a live session of the tool I'm going to present. Okay, our tool is aimed to be user-friendly, so it in the estimating the carbon credits potentially generated by improved forest management, and is aimed to support a comparison between forest management scenarios, one of which is the baseline one, to estimate a carbon storage differential between the two scenarios, and doing so supporting forest associations in understanding the potential of their managed forests. Sorry for the graphic. The approach that we use to estimate the carbon credits and the baseline is the legal baseline, because we consider that this can reflect the current approach to be locally set on local forest management. So we compare the impact allowed by the regulation, the local regulation, and compare it with an alternative, less impacting intervention scenario, and the differential of carbon stock permanently present in the forest is the credit generation. The baseline and the alternative management are defined by the 4 key parameters that are the species composition, the forest category, the forest regulation where the forest falls, the silvicultural, their current silvicultural treatment, and the relative maximum impact allowed intervention. The alternative management, of course, is less impacting, and then it produces an increasing in carbon stock permanently present in the forest. I think that the Italian framework is it could be a test also for a European level, because in Italy we have a very high level of complexity. We analyzed all the regulations present in our territory, and we found 32 regulations that are at a regional and even at a provincial scale, that they talk about 9 different silvicultural treatments. They include also more than 60 forest categories, in which are described and allowed 11 different interventions. After this analysis, we selected the 8 different alternative strategies that I will show you in a minute, and they are limited, or let's say regulated by 18 different parameters and their relative threshold values, and it resulted in more than 11,000 combinations. These are the categories, the strategies that we defined. Some of them are relative to different silvicultural treatments, and can be applied. One of them can be applied at a plan level because it's the extension of a rotation length. The other strategies can be applied also at a compartment level, and then summed up and included in a plan, and then they can be useful to understand the amount of carbon credits potentially generated by the improved forest management. What we have done is synthesize, not simplify, the complexity, generating 46 calculation calculation strategies, categories that we call it for family in Italian language, but I translated in category. They are the intersection of the strategy that I showed up before, the maximum impact allowed intervention, and the relative threshold parameter. Then the system asks you to specify some general stand information and give you the specific threshold value. Then this is the framework and the complexity, just to let you know how complex in Italy is the situation. And these are all the calculation strategies that calculation categories that we implemented in the tool. But just briefly, I show how the carbon tool works. You have to put the stand general information that we saw before. Identify the specific calculation category and ask you for specific information. One of these is the threshold value. it selects the threshold value in a baseline scenario and asks you to put an alternative value for the improved forest management and give you a graphical output to understand the dynamics between the two scenarios. Then you put the species composition and their relative abundance, and it returns you the numeric input about the carbon credit potentially generated and even an estimate of the yearly carbon credit generated if you put the period of the project. Then you can print the report and use it to implement a carbon farming project and ask to be registered in the registry of carbon credits voluntary market in Italy that is regulated by the national authority. If you are interested, tomorrow you can have a live session in the live stand at the main entrance. So thank you very much for attention. And thanks also to the other parts of the carbon team of the project.
And just a heads up, some of the photos in the presentation didn't save well, as for example, the one of Lucio right now. So just please have a look out for the presentation when we upload it on the Team Credible on the summit page later on. Next up is Francesca.
Thank you, Sara. Okay. The green one? Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Francesca Dini from PEFC Italy, and today I'm going to show you how our work of the last 25 years here in Italy, and especially the work connected to the standard about the ecosystem services, and how it can act as a lever for the carbon farming. Connecting with only the Italian experience, we have developed this standard within the framework of PEFC. First of all, what is PEFC? PEFC is a scheme owner, is a global system who promotes sustainable forest management. And today, PEFC is the largest certification scheme for sustainable forest management, with 296 million hectares of certified forest area all over the world. This scheme works with independent third-party certification, ensuring that forests are well managed according with environmental, social, and economic sustainability criteria. PEFC all over the world works through national standard. It means that our standard is adapted to local forest context. And this flexibility makes them usable to every country, to all proper characteristics and forest ecosystem. Speaking about Italy, forest certification is present since 2001, and since then we have got 1.12 million of hectares certified all along the country in 17 regions. In 2021, we have developed a new standard only dedicated to ecosystem services based on MRV approach. Today, we have a Tier 3 ecosystem service certificate that covers more than 78,000 hectares in Italy, in 14 regions. All the ecosystem services we consider in this standard are carbon storage and avoided emission, biodiversity conservation, recreational service of forest and suitability for forest wellness. When we have developed this new tool, we have set some milestones, some topics very fundamental for us. The first was is additionality, that I'm not going to talk about it today, and moreover, traceability and permanence. Regarding traceability, this is guaranteed by the mandatory link to PFC Sustainable Forest Management certification. Every ecosystem services certificate is directly linked to a certification of the forest management. Then we ask for a well-defined and certified forest area and explicit identification of the ecosystem services. Moreover, we have set also transparent rules and claims, rules for claim and communication to avoid greenwashing and to create more credibility of the market and interest in the buyers. Regarding permanence, we got it through a management-based approach, linking inactive and planned forest management. Moreover, integrating the ecosystem service into a long-term forest management plan. It means a plan at least of 15 years. Another important concept we have created with this standard is the sustainability credit. Sustainability credit for PEFC Italy only are a certified unit representing measurable environmental benefit generated by additional forest management practices that are quantified by CO2 equivalent tons. We have created this concept to make a link between forest owner and companies, because sustainability credits enable company and organization to support and finance ecosystem services provided by certified forests. The most important thing is to clarify that sustainability credits are not carbon credit. And this means that sustainability credit cannot be used for carbon offsetting projects. These are only designed to support positive interaction between productive world and forest world. You can read directly on this slide the number we have got in the last 5 years, and you can see that exists a voluntary market in Italy where these sustainability credits are traded. And it's a voluntary agreement between forest owner and companies. To conclude, I would like to highlight the policy recommendation and the key challenges we have found during our work into this topic. First of all, we need to increase funding mechanisms supporting the forest owner association and cooperative forest management, especially in Italy and in all that country where the forest ownership are really fragmented. Thank you. Moreover, we need public support to promote public tender and procurement scheme rewarding certified sustainable forest management. and to create incentives for forest owners engaged in the promotion of ecosystem services. Regarding challenges, we need to raising the awareness about forest ecosystem services about the general public. We don't know a lot about it, especially here in Italy. And it's very important to provide training and technical knowledge within public administration about the ecosystem services relevance and certificate forest-based product. Finally, reducing certification costs while maintaining the high credibility and robustness. Thank you. Sorry.
So I think there was one question I actually had for you, which was about the difference between PFC Italy and the international level, if there is anything policy-wise, because you're also perfectly on time, so thank you.
Okay, yeah. PFC International is still working in creating some standard regarding carbon farming, carbon credits, and also nature-based solution. But they want to create a solid framework to maintain the affordability of forest certification scheme and add over it the certification of the ecosystem services. We already know that PFC scheme and standard about forest management are already in line with the most of the carbon standard already existing regarding legality and so on, but we need to create a scheme who can be flexible and applicable to all the country in the world. So it's more complicated than to create a standard only applicable to a single country, as we have already done.
Awesome. Thank you. So now we have a small change of personnel or speakers, and I want to introduce Luke, who's going to talk next, and he made me aware of this wording that I never heard before. You probably all have, I don't know. It's like being carbon aware when it comes to biomass. So.
Thank you, yes. And so with the change of cast also comes a change of location, mainly because I work out in the wild, in the fields, or technically the bits between the fields, but certainly not in woodland. So I hope this isn't too disturbing for anyone. The project that I've been working on now for the last 3.5 years, a government-funded project, the Soil Nutrient Health Scheme, which is essentially setting out to quantify Northern Ireland's above-ground biomass, but at the at-field scale, so that we have some idea what we've got as a nation. So yes, policymakers and farmers will both get something out of this government exercise. And hopefully we will also produce a protocol that can be repeatedly applied for the long-term discussions around LULUCF and just tracking where we're at and how an improvement is actually biting. Is it working? And a little bit of background, Northern Ireland, it's the bit of Ireland that's outside the EU. We are part of the UK. It is massively rural. Over 1 million hectares of arable agricultural land owned by or operated by 23,000 farmers. We do not have landlords of thousands of acres. They're all small men and women doing small amounts of work. The fields are small. Less than a hectare is average. We do not have mega fields where you have big machines. You go to the trade shows and you have our little tractors, and then you have the monsters of every other country. We are very, very different from most. And obviously hedges are above ground biomass, but then there's also the woodland, there's individual trees, bushes, scrub, which is all out there, but it's not currently accounted for in our national inventory, and that's not helpful. We need to move that forward, especially given that Northern Ireland is committed to be net zero by 2050. We need to know actually some stats before we really get into that. Problem is, though, as has previously been discussed today, agriculture generally are not early adopters, and certainly Northern Irish farmers aren't really down with what carbon is yet. A few of them keep saying to me, is it the next pollutant? Is this the next thing you're going to ban? So we really are got quite a few later adopters amongst the industry. So to build our model, obviously we had to make some assumptions. First up, we'd taken a 16 point per meter LiDAR data set, retained only that vegetation, or that which is described as vegetation, low, medium, high. Also the ground, road surface, rail, and unassigned classes based on standard classification. So it cuts out a lot of the noise, but keeps more than enough, hopefully, of the good stuff from our point of view. I'm going to be talking about hedges and what really is a hedge. So audience left, so that screen, you've got little yellowy sausages going around the outside of fields. That is where a hedge is allowed. Our government rules are a hedge may not be more than 2.5 meters from the edge of the field. So that's nice and simple for us. We have applied that. The narrow bits of sausage are 2.5 meters, the wide are 5 meters. You can't have a hedge anywhere else. But also because obviously fields don't always touch fields. Sometimes they touch private houses or they touch road. You need to ensure that any AGB that leans away from the field is brought back to its parent field for when later calculation. And on above my head, we've got these red strips around the fields. That, again, is a government rule. We've been handed down that anything within 5 meters of a field in terms of AGB is admissible as above ground biomass. So that's how those red buffers work. But as you can see, top left of the picture, where fields aren't 5 meters apart, you get a narrow red strip. So it has to be responsive to the situation in hand. We run our protocol using, for the woodland, anything above 4 meters, so trees, etc. The Dalpont classification protocol, that's well established. Quite a few of you probably are familiar with it, so we're not really pushing bounds there. But we make the nice pictures which we think will engage the farmers who aren't yet convinced what we're on about. We can give them this picture. We can say, look, here are your tall items, which in this case is the pink or the orange, and your lower altitude items, such as your scrub or the yellow, and this is where it is scattered across your farm. And then the blue is where hedge is permitted to be, and where we, in analysing our LiDAR data, we have actually found data to support the presence of something that is above ground. The challenge for that is some farmers believe very much in short back and sides. Their hedge is 1 meter tall, it is 50 centimeters wide, and it is absolutely perfect linear. Others, it can be out of control. It's 5 meters wide, it can be 8 meters tall, and it's just left to get on with it. So a hedge to the Northern Irish farmer is a very broad concept, and we're having to handle all of that when we're working nationally. As I say, this is an image I propose you would give to a farmer to engage them in that first point of conversation. And then, because each field, we can identify back to field where each item of AGB belongs to. We can use the allometric equation to calculate carbon content for said AGB. You can then calculate your total field carbon. Again, this is a picture I would suggest a farmer may enjoy engaging with. I must also highlight this is a fictitious farm using fictitious values somewhere within Northern Ireland. If we were to present this result to the owner of these fields, we'd be able to say to them, these are the fields where you've got high AGB, which is red, and you've got low in the blue areas. And then you've got this position where you can start talking to them about why is that field blue? Is there a good business reason for why it perhaps doesn't need to be considered as an AGB source in future, whereas perhaps some of the other fields would do better in a less intensive lifestyle. Again, it's a visual engagement, it's a conversation starter. And for those who like a little bit more data, the conversation starter, it would be a table like this. So these are test sites we've got across eastern and western Northern Ireland to see if the Dalpont project, part of the project, is working properly. As you can see, the west, it's a lot higher carbon content, just naturally. It's a lot wetter. If they get less than 2 meters of rain a year, they start to worry. In the east, it's almost dry. We're down to 1700 millimeters. We do actually even manage some cereal crops in the east. But the values are as we would expect. And again, it's just a way of getting the farmer talking if they're more of a numerical rather than a visual kind of person. And I said the policymakers need something out of it as well. And the data that we're making, again, on our two test areas, east and west, these are the kind of numbers I'd suggest that a policymaker might be more interested in looking at. So you've got hedge zone density, carbon in hedge, total mass of carbon across the area which we've chosen, the 30 or the 18 kilometers squared. And it's a way for you to get a handle on what's going on in your country or your county or your postcode. I'd suggest that you, as the policymaker, come to me with the shape file and say, I want to know about, and I'll come back to you with that table populated. That is the aim. So overall, it is now possible technologically to use LiDAR data to deliver field scale data, but at a national scale. It is a lot of work, I agree, and there are challenges with LiDAR data collection, especially if you're living in a cold, wet climate. But if we get better weather ever, we can do repeat surveys, and we can then use change maps to talk to the farmers. So 10 years down the line, we'll take that map of the fields and say to the farmer, well, this is how you were, this is where you're at. Here's a third map, which is the change. So again, it's the visual or the tabular conversation starter, gives us a bit more. I'm actually talking to you about your land in a way which, because you are intimately associated with it, you will understand what has happened. But I will be the first to put my hand up and say that where we are today, there's still many optimizations to be made before we ever could start supporting MRV protocols, or I would ever want to base farmer future funding decisions at government level on. But we have to start at the beginning, and we have started in Northern Ireland. Thank you. And yes, I'm here all week if anyone would like to follow up questions.
Thank you. So one thing you probably all should have known from the beginning is we were 6 different groups merging together in order to create the session, meaning that right now we're moving on to a slightly different format, which means Vincenz, Thomas, and Mirko are going to go into this discussion. But when we first started, so Thomas, Vincenz, and I, and Mirko started, when we started to talk about this session, what we would like to present this year or to talk about this year, it was kind of the deal was, it's all about the baseline. At least that was kind of the tagline that we had. Thus, talking about this, I would hand over to Thomas first to lead us into his views on this point. And just start off with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Well, my name is Thomas Lundmark. I come from Sweden, a very forested country with 28 million hectares of forests, of which 75% is actively managed for roundwood production. And as Sarah said, that when it comes to the carbon credits, it's all about the baseline. And when I compare what I have already heard from the discussions on this summit with the summit in Dublin last year, it's a much more of an agreement. I think that when you have data of high quality and the possibility of using them, then the project-based baselines are to be preferred. And I'm glad to hear that also the JRC is also working with setting up such a database that can be used when such high-quality data is not existing. So that's really, really good. But I know that even if we have managed to set up a forward-looking baseline, which I think is important, it has to be really forward-looking because there is no business as usual forestry any longer, I should say, because of the fact that, well, as Vincenz, you always used to tell us about the complexity of the forests. Even in Sweden, we think we have complexity, but it's nothing like what you have in Austria, I'm sure. But I think that it's especially the economic context of forestry that has been changing, and is changing rapidly. Now when the fossil and cement sources are to be phased out. It has to be replaced with something, and this will put new pressure on renewables, and it will completely change the market situation for forestry. And this, together with climate change, really makes it difficult to make anything else than a forward-looking baseline, trying to take these dynamics into consideration. But I know that you, Vincent, you have been thinking about also this uncertainty and risk discussions and how that can be, well, taken into consideration. So I think I leave the floor to you now.
Thank you. My name is Vincent Fürstenberg. I'm a project developer from Austria, and we're running IFM projects now for quite a while. We're focusing on remodeling, reshaping the forests, mainly to make them more resilient. That's our prime objective. The second objective is then to create carbon removals. So risk is for us the factor when we work with forests. As we are working with existing forests, as I keep reminding everyone that wants to do anything with the CRCF methodology, this is a completely different ballgame to planting trees on the meadow. It has nothing to do with it at all. So, and here I think there are so many things to say, but to also relate to what to the very good OXO and also the JRC presentation from earlier. I think, first of all, you have to acknowledge that these pre-existing forests, they existed before we started the project. They are losing carbon left and right at the moment in Europe. It's a fact. We simply cannot ignore that. I'm not talking about mismanagement. I'm not talking about management decisions. I'm talking about force majeure. I'm talking about climate change. These ecosystems are being hit by climate change, and we can pretend that it's not happening. We can cherry pick forests that are more stable right now than others. We can work our way around it, but as we heard just a few minutes ago in the main stage, nature does not follow methodologies. So I think it's for the DG Klima, for everyone, for every decision maker in this IFM game, I think it's crucial to understand that we have to deal with calamities, and we have to think about calamities, force majeure events in every single step that we plan and that we think regarding IFM. That, of course, starting to select the forest, how do we deal with it, risk systems, buffer pools, how big are our buffer pools, how do we structure the buffer pools, but especially also when it comes to baselining. So I believe that it's incredibly important, much more important than in other areas of carbon farming. And also the fact that we're losing carbon is something that, for example, for peatland, it got accepted. Peatland is a source of emissions, and reducing those emissions is considered carbon removal in the CRCF. This is very sensible, but it's an interesting side note. And so we really have to think about that. And one thing also considering this, the JRC, I think what we would need is a centralized, very good damage model, because we are trying to integrate foreseeing damages, calamities into our models. We're using risk assessment, climate models on a lot of different levels in our methodology. But what we do not do is starting with foreseeing any type of damages. Like there is like a 3% chance that the stock of X gets damaged by a bug beetle next year. This is something where we enter the realm of uncertainties, and where I believe that project developers can play around unlimited. And so we need a central authority to give us one risk model where we can then model damages with. Otherwise, it's complete chaos and gamification. But I don't want to say too much, actually. But these are a few thoughts on the matter of risk.
Thank you. So my first question is actually for Mirko, like what is your reaction after listening all of the presentations and now these 2 statements you had?
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be more of a conversation between the 3 of you rather than me watching it.
Yeah. No, thank you. No, first, I mean, thanks for the presentations before. I think they were very...
I think you have to speak closer to
can you hear me? Yeah. So there were very, very good examples of calculators, new ways to consider the risk also by stacking. That's actually a very interesting point. That link also with the discussion you were having about risk and baselines. LiDAR is for sure an option for MRV that should be actually considered. I still think that we're also still in the phase where we need to build the capacity to, at a certain point, to use satellite to mimic what LiDAR can do, also to be at larger scale. But okay, that's maybe not for another type of panel. But I think there are, in this sense, the CRCF could really help also to establish this ground segment from the projects to the LiDAR data to the satellite to produce new products. So I see there a lot of potential. And then also the aspects on the ecosystem services. This it links quite a lot with one of the points that I have about the baseline. That I think one key aspect to discuss to consider when there will be the discussion on the baseline for improved forest management is that on one end we need to somehow strike a bit the balance between trying to improve carbon sequestration, but also keep other services at good level, and the biodiversity requirements, because there it's a bit of a triangle that is not always easy to sort out, because there can be solutions that are very good for resilience that on the other hand they can reduce the carbon sequestration, at least in the short term. Then when you consider the longer term, is a different story. So this is
I might add, in my point of view, this is also an aspect that is, I mean, it's technically, we're forced to do it right now, but this, the aspect of always having this very limited point of view and this limited range of time that we can look at, we worked ourselves from one year to the other, and we have to, in the end, come up with a carbon plus. This is how we are forced to do it. But of course, if we look at nature, this is not in the interest of nature itself, actually. So this is also quite a limiting factor. I don't think we will escape that anytime soon, but I think it's highly unsatisfying.
Yeah, and this is really, in my opinion, one point also to consider also, because really the view of the legislation is also, on one end, creating the market, but also try to build this land resilience. No? That is also quite important. I think maybe some other point of reflections that I had about the baselines and about the risk is that the other big question would be, so how the risk should be already included in the calculation of the baseline. We have also this morning in another session an example in which was actually set aside the risk and then was reevaluated a year after some time during the project, because this is also an important question, because the scenarios about risk are not very robust. And only now there are scientific products that are going in this direction, but we need to consider also this aspect, or how can we use the buffer pool somehow to mitigate this in time. So I think those are probably the points where during the discussion for development of methodologies for the baseline are quite important. Okay, another point that you called me it was about the centralized climate model for damage. I do agree, and we are actually trying to work on that direction. So the example that I showed before is a first example of a risk map, but we're also trying to build models to have also a better calculation of the impacts of this risk. On the other hand, and here I go back a bit to the first part of my introduction, in particular for forests, there are certain risks that are really species-specific, and it's very complicated to have a pan-European product or also model that can handle all the conditions. One example is the insects or in general the disease of the bark beetles. So, for example, when we started to build this framework for the risk, we wanted really to try to divide the risk for disturbance type, but also species or dominant species. And then we enter into the point that when we got large scale, you don't have so much information or so much robust information, for instance, on species presence and so on. On the other hand, if you go locally, or even at country scale in some cases, you can have this information very well designed. So I think there it's important to try to build a framework, but not really just the model that one can use plug and play, but to define what are the key elements that this recipe should have, because then there are some aspects that we're not yet technologically ready to, or in terms of data set to face at European scale, or to have one model that can work in all the conditions. So that's a bit my reflection on that.
Absolutely.
I just want to address another thing that we quite frequently forget when it comes to the baselines, and that's at least in Sweden, and I know it in many other countries, and project developers that we are working with rather large holdings, because it's easier to set up forward-looking baseline and a management plan if you have a large holding with a rather even flow of timber. So but when it comes to the small landowners, which is actually a dominating part of Europe, we have very volatile stocks over time. And this doesn't match the regulation, because the regulation states that it's only new removals that can be accounted for. And how do we then do when even in a very ambitious climate project, the stock is actually going down due to management reasons to maintain the development of the climate project? I think this is something that we really we need at least to start to think about it, and in the near future we have to have some working groups working on this. Today and at present it's for the big landowners, and perhaps the big landowners can be that's where we are trying to get this going. But to really scale it up, we have to include all landowners. I see this as a very big challenge for the future.
Yeah. Maybe just one reaction from my side very quickly on this, which is a very good point. And I think in your talk you mentioned that so for instance this biodiversity units and non-eco benefits could be one solution for the smallholder. I think was one of the conclusions, and I think maybe finding also some mechanism in other legislations that are looking not only at the carbon but on other aspects that are related to other co-benefits could be one potential output. On another aspect is that if you really have an MRV method that can really consider very well the climate effect and the already declining sink with a good management plan, maybe you can still have, even as a small order, some additionality. But of course, your MRVs should be very, very precise in tracking that effect, I think. But yeah, that's a few reflections on this aspect. But it's an important point also to have a scheme that is as much as inclusive as possible. So that's
I can just echo that. I think it's really important for us that are in the forestry business is to start to think a little bit more about the co-benefits. It's not only about biodiversity. I mean, that's an important co-benefit, but there are so many other co-benefits. As with Vincent's ambition to create resilient forests that are managing to cope with the climate change is one thing. We have the provision of raw material for the growing bioeconomy, and I suppose that if we start to think about it, it's a lot of co-benefits that should be included as more or less mandatory in a future methodology or delegated act that will describe the overall content of methodologies, and not take this for given. I mean, this is really, really something important that the forest system is providing society with, and that should be clarified, not least to the policymakers, because I'm not sure that they see it the way we see it. I think that we are.
We still have some time, or?
Well, I mean, you are within your time frame, but I would actually like to open the floor. I would start off by asking actually Luke and Francesca a question I want to also hand up to the whole audience, which is first go to like all of our speakers and then go to you if we have enough time. If you had one like thing on your wish list for like Santa or like Babbo Natale of like the wish list item for like whether it's policymakers or academics, like for any of the stakeholders involved, what would you need? Like, what's the thing you need the most urgently solved? What would be your like Christmas wish list item number one? So I'll hand over to Francesca first, going to Luke.
Okay, thank you. We have a lot of wishes about ecosystem service and coastal carbon, but if I have to select only one, I think we would like to promote our sustainability credit to carbon credit, and to do this we need some national or European rules to this step more, and then we asked for the Italian register for the carbon credits or the European register. So we are waiting for these new tools.
Thank you. I'm going to hedge, as it were, on my answers and say I don't mind if it's Old Father Time or the Climate Fairy. Either of them is welcome. The Climate Fairy could take the climate of 2005 and bring it to today. That would be fine. I'll be down with that. Or if Father Christmas could please take all of our current remote sensing technology, drones, LiDAR, satellite, all of that back to 2005 and give us 20 years to find out how they all work together to produce some kind of solution that we can actually now just drop in and go forward from, rather than being now we've got a climate in a muddle and we've got a whole load of technology that we don't quite know how it all works with each other. Is it actually helping us? It's too many questions all at once for me.
Thank you. So since they're already on an active microphone, I would ask Thomas and Vincent first, and then go to Ugo, Lucio, and Farid. No, Mirko is going to go last. So don't worry, like we want to have the audience too. Sorry.
Do you want to be before me?
You look more like Santa. You can start.
Okay. I don't know. I live closer to Santa.
That's for sure.
Yeah. But I think it's... my general impression is that climate forestry is an upcoming concept, and that is satisfying because the forest sector is I think is key to reach the climate goals, and I am, at least most of the days, I'm quite optimistic that if we start to work more together, the different developers in all these European countries. We start to talk to each other, and it's. I think that's the path forward, and to establish a really good methodology approach for carbon forestry that can help out both the climate goals and the bioeconomy goals and other sustainability goals. So it's. I think I stop there as the optimistic person. See what you are, Vincent.
maybe not to talk about the nitty-gritty details on baselining and so on, but when it comes to a wish towards the CRCF and IFM, I would say that if we at least try to model the methodology around how forests actually work and how forest dynamics actually work and what would be good for climate and nature, and not just what's convenient within our methodological framework thinking. This is certainly a wish of mine. And, but on a more realistic level, to simply acknowledge that existing forests IFM projects are a different ball game than trees on the grassland that we just planted 5 years ago, and to acknowledge that and everything that comes with it, on the good side and the bad side.
Thank you very much. Ugo, you go first.
Okay. Yes, I like last intervention. I think that a wish, of course, is something that could lead to impact, really impact in to the climate change. So this is the way. I think that I hope this is the common wish for all. In a more practical way, probably a monitoring system in 2 scales. One can be at farm level, at management level, and another one could be at a national or at a greater scale. And the second one can help to understand if we really impact in that. And of course, it's a complex system. So in fostering to be more complete in working in carbon farming with this complexity. Okay.
Thank you. I'll just make you guys work if it's okay to hand over the microphone.
Sure.
Thank you for improvising.
I have 2 wishes. The first one is to finally launch a proper carbon market in Europe at the cost of failing it and having it with mistakes, because it will happen, but if we don't test it, we will never discover and keep talking about baselines and so on, which is interesting. And the second is I think that many answers lay in the field work, as I said 10 times. So in a certain point, closing the gap between academic research and practitioner could help finding proper solutions. That's my second wish.
Thank you. Okay, so my wish is for more demand. We are running Germany's largest IFM project on 3,000 hectares. We have 56,000 hectares of forest owners in our pipeline waiting to be incentivized to increase their carbon storage. And what I'm seeing is what I'm seeing in the market is really missing demand. We're building CRCF in isolation. There's no use case. And how do we get to a use case? How do we incentivize also companies to procure carbon removals? We need to allow companies to make claims. We need to allow policymakers, the companies, to label, for instance, carbon neutrality or climate neutrality. We have to set a proper framework for companies to communicate their climate action in a safe way, because only then companies will feel safe to put money into climate projects. And now the infrastructure is there, the MRV is there, the remote sensing is there, the field audits are there, but we now need policy to do 2 things. First, to acknowledge that NDC accounting for national determined contributions of the national inventories vis-à-vis Paris goal is one inventory, and GHG reporting on a company basis is a completely different second inventory. So then, when we acknowledge this, we can allow companies to remove their emissions, to claim net zero, etc. This is number 1. And number 2, that's also really important, is the connection with SBTI, Science-Based Targets Initiative, because this is how the large corporates are setting their net zero strategies. So we need to allow European companies with SBTI targets to use European CRCF audited removals to get to net zero. And right now, CRCF and SBTI are out of sync. There's no interoperability between the two. And when we have this SBTI and CRCF working in tandem, being synchronized, this will will generate a massive influx into the projects that we all built the infrastructure for. Thank you.
Wonderful. So who else has a wish we haven't named yet? I mean, I suppose this room is not empty. Does anyone want to, would you like?
Yeah, I think two things. I would like to see leakage and time discounting to be accounted for. And I haven't heard anything about this. And I work on a framework myself, trying to incorporate these issues, and they lead to massive discounting after additionality. Like if you take additionality or like the credited values as face value. I'm going to talk about this on Thursday, by the way.
Awesome. Who else would like to add something? Please, I'm sure any one of you, like, there's definitely going to be wishes. Yes, one.
I'm a very non-technical person, and I don't understand a lot of these methods and everything else. I'm trying to understand it as you're speaking, but as I hear, there are quite a lot of models, quite a lot of research going on, but it's kind of, for me to make those links and how they're actually complementing each other and work together, it's something whether I'm not getting or it's not there. Yeah, that's my question.
Thank you. Anyone else, please? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, you got your wish. To some extent. Who wants to go as the third person, please? Don't tell me you're all super happy. Thank you.
Hi, all. I'm Spencer Plum from Vera, and I would just say collaboration. We've been doing this for a while. We've made lots of mistakes. They've been well documented. We've been working to improve on that, and I'm excited to be here so that we can have some of these exchanges. And there are some things that I'm hearing that, you know, I think we've worked through, and we recognize that there are challenges, and one of those is proliferation of methodologies. I see several different approaches being sort of rolled out on a either country level basis or just competing standards, and that's fine, but I also think there's room for alignment, thinking about broader methodologies that work across spatial scales and ecosystems and countries, and I think that's a real opportunity to lean into and use DMRV and all this new data that we're seeing come out to understand baselines, to understand leakage, to understand permanence. So we've touched on that a little bit, but let's talk.
Thank you. Right behind you.
Hi, so I would wish for that ETS and CRCF and then all the co-benefits that we are talking about, there should be something which can work together. So this is just a very large, ambitious wish, but yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone wants to go before I hand over to Mirko for his wish? Yes, there's a lady right in the back. Sorry.
My wish is pretty simple. I think it would be great to have some alignment, like it's already mentioned, so sorry for reiterating that. But yeah, if two people are modeling or trying to find how much carbon is sequestered from a project, I hope we can get to a common answer. And like, yeah, that would be great.
Thank you. So now I think it's your turn, if you want to add your wish.
My wish? Okay. No, okay. No, I'm going lighter.
I'm sure you have one.
And I think the wish is a polar orbit LiDAR, but okay, that's from the MRV perspective. No, but I second quite a lot also what Vincent said before about this, also really thinking at the final climate effect of all this initiative, which links with the point of the leakage, which is actually an important aspect to also to consider, and I think this is the most important wish. If I may just answer one of the points on the models and the different models that goes to same result. Yeah, there was actually quite a bit of discussion at the beginning of the development of the certification. I'm not from the policy side, just to be clear. I'm from the scientific support on this aspect. But the decision was also to keep flexibility on the tools that operators and the people involved can actually use in the certification, and that's why the methodology itself it frames the rules. But then, if it's one model or the other, that's not the thing that the methodologies has to say. There will be some part of the methodologies that then would define how a model can be eligible for the application in the certification. This, of course, goes in the direction of who raised the point before that I'm sure that if we run two different models in the same thing, place with the same data, we don't get the same results, because this is actually, I mean, what we know from running models. But it's very important also because to keep this flexibility, because it's also a market, and a voluntary market, where you need to keep this flexibility. And also on the alignment of the methodologies, actually there was quite a bit of, maybe we can conclude with this, quite a bit of discussion, and it's an important point. On the other hand, there is also the aspect, this is really focused on Europe, and there might be also specificities that are different from standards that are meant to be applied globally, for instance, in terms of species selections for afforestation, in terms of how you calculate the risk, and so on. So that's why, so there was a big screening at the beginning of all the methodologies on, let's say, on the market and available, and the ones that are coming, actually. But the idea is yeah, let's not do something completely different, but also something that is very specific and attractive for Europe, and that's also an important aspect to consider. And yeah, that's a bit my.
Thank you very much. No, that's perfect. So as I mentioned earlier, like, please feel free to ask any more questions you have, and a big thank you to everyone in the room for listening, for giving us your wishes, to everyone that worked behind the scenes, but also to everyone here sitting on any of the seats. So thank you very much, and I hope you had a good time.